Folks, welcome back to Flatirons Tuning. We are here at our top secret test track, and today we're going to talk about differentials. Before we dive into it, just want to say, make sure you like and subscribe to the channel. If you're watching on mobile, hit that hype button. That really helps us out a ton. Why differentials? Why here? Why now? Well, the answer is because we have put our spare rally drivetrain in our VBWX. That has a Cusco one-way front differential and a Cusco 1.5-way rear differential in it. So that's what this car now has. My yellow WRX here, my 03, has front and rear torque biasing differentials. I have an AP SureTrack in the rear, Mona torque biasing differential up front. So this has front and rear torque biasing differentials. The VB here has front and rear Cusco plated differentials. We've talked a lot about how these things work and what the differences are. The goal today is to show you how they are different. Why would Subaru have shifted to torque biasing differentials in the STI? Why would you want plated differentials in a rally car? But where might the plated differentials not be as great for a daily driver, that sort of thing. So we're going to try and get in and show you that, show you what these differences are. We've kind of talked about how it works. Now we want to talk about how it feels. And it's worth mentioning here, it turns out both cars have the exact same tires, Continental Extreme Contact DWS tires. So it's the same grip between both cars. It's just the differentials that are different. So I think that's going to give us a good comparison. So that's the framework of it. Now let's jump into one of these cars and let's see what we can show you. To start, we are going to go in tight circles because that kind of showcases what the difference is here. All right. Oh boy, even now getting started, you can kind of hear the diffs lock up. Okay. One way versus 1.5 way. The key difference here worth mentioning is that the one-way diff will only lock as you're applying power. So if I just coast around this here, it's not going to lock up. I can go through any kind of turns. If I'm lifting off, the diff, front diff is open, the rear diff is starting to lock up, but it's gradual lockup. That's the 1.5 way. So, kind of come around here. Now if I turn tight, a little bit of lockup. The tighter I go, the more. And then if I get on power, that's when it starts popping. It gets really chirpy. We're going to try not to throw up here. We're going to call that good. But if you push in the clutch, you lift off on the throttle, then the car just drives as normal. Now, what does that mean when you're actually driving on a normal road? So we're going to take a quick little loop out here. Basically, what this does, see they're pulling out of this parking lot, just applying throttle, you can feel the front axle locking up and you get that clunking. Which if you're on dirt, if you're in a rally car, that's what you want. You need that. But if you're just driving around on tarmac, it's a little bit much. Okay. So if you're going around a corner, and we're not going to go crazy fast, but what happens is, if you're going around a corner and you're on the throttle, the diff is going to start locking up. And you can feel that. And then when you come off the throttle, you can feel the nose come back in. It's hard to see. You can really feel it. So the car feels, you can feel a lot of the changes going on with the traction, with the car, as you're going around a corner, depending on if you're on the throttle or off the throttle. It's a very noticeable difference that you can feel. Again, for slick conditions, dirt especially, that actually helps things because that's what gives you control as you start to get to the limit of traction. But when you're just driving a car every day, this is where it can be a little bit offsetting and it can cause a little bit of weird inputs or weird reactions from the car that you wouldn't normally expect because the diffs are intervening. This is why typically for a street car at most, say maybe 1.5 way in the rear, but torque biasing up front. Because there, the nose just moved in. I mean, you can make an argument that there's a positive result from having basically the lift off and the turn in, but it's going to happen all the time. You can't turn it off because it's just part of the diffs. So that's what the locking diffs do. They're always working. The front with the one-way, it's always working if you're on power. The rear, it's always doing something whether you're on power or not. And you can feel that between the front and the rear axles shifting kind of the traction around in the car. We are in my 03 WRX, again, torque biasing front diff, torque biasing rear diffs. To start, we're just gonna do a tight turn. And the clutch between these two cars is vastly different. I'm gonna try not to stall this one now. Okay, so tight turn first. All right, so we're going around this little curve here. So torque biasing diffs, you come off the throttle, it doesn't really make any difference. Get on the throttle, off the throttle. The car is just gonna go in a circle. It's gonna apply power, but you're not gonna have any chirping or locking up, okay? Why did Subaru go to torque biasing diffs for the STI? Well, the short answer is because torque biasing diffs make the car feel like you think an all-wheel drive car should feel. Because it just kind of feels like the car is just planted and you have traction right up to the point where you overcome the tires, and usually the car will just slide all four out at the same time. Now the advantage of this is the diff's working, it just feels like you have traction, but that's it. There's no other feel change in the car for the diffs doing their job. So you can go around a corner, you can apply throttle, you can come off the throttle. It's not going to change the lockup across the axle because the torque biasing diffs are just applying all of the torque. They're not really shifting it left to right. They're just making sure that the tires have torque. That's it. So that makes the car feel totally planted, and like you're not going to have to do any kind of steering or anything like that. And then if the car noses in at all, it's only from the weight transfer from coming off the throttle. Also worth noting is that like the torque biasing differentials, under braking, you're not getting any lockup, so it's basically an open axle. So again, the car is going to feel a bit more stable if you're like going around a tight corner and coming off the throttle. And it just feels smooth everywhere. Whereas the plated diffs, you're gonna feel the binding, the locking, you're gonna hear the clunks, especially on the tight stuff. Torque biasing diffs, the car just feels like it's on rails, which is what we kind of think all-wheel drive should feel like. It only breaks down when one tire has no traction. Then the diff devolves or whatever to becoming an open differential. But you go around a corner, you apply the throttle, you don't have to change the steering at all. The car just feels like it's on rails and it's planted. So there's some real benefits to that, and this is a much nicer setup if you're just driving a street car. You're driving on tarmac all the time. It feels natural. Whereas the plated diffs, like you're gonna feel them doing stuff, especially the tighter it is and the more you're getting on throttle. It just feels, you can feel it locking up a lot more.
So we're back in the VB again because I had a question. We've decided now the torque biasing diffs are more ideal for a street car that might see some track time, while the plated diffs are definitely going to fit a racing application, a rally car, much better. So which one, say we go to High Plains with these two cars today, same car, same corner, same conditions, which one would be better, torque biasing or plated type diff?
Great question, Carter. Let's get into it. The simple answer to it is it depends on how much power you have. Because torque biasing differentials, remember, if you lose traction on one wheel, it reverts to being an open differential. If you're making enough power as you hit the apex of the corner and you roll onto the throttle that you lose traction, now that diff is not doing you any good at all.
Sure.
That's where you would need a torque biasing, or sorry, a clutch type differential, a Cusco differential, or something like it. If you have issues with traction in the rear, which we've seen guys in the past, because Subarus can be rear biased, that's where the rear torque bias or rear clutch type differential becomes really important. But with the front, if you don't want the front to basically plow or understeer as you come on throttle, you'd want to try and stick with the torque biasing differential as long as you can. And you would only switch to a plated differential if you're breaking the tire loose and getting a lot of issues with understeer. If you can come on throttle coming out of a corner and you still have plenty of traction with the torque biasing differential, that is better because it's not going to unsettle the car, it's not going to move the car to a different line in the corner. But if you've got enough power where you're breaking traction up front and the torque biasing differential is not letting you put the power down, that's when you'd move to the Cusco type or a plated type front diff. The thing is that a lot of times then you will have to go and drive differently because you're going to have to get the car to rotate more on throttle to turn. You can't just turn it with the wheel. So a lot of it depends on steering feel and kind of what you want the car to feel like when you're driving it. The other thing is slick conditions. If you're driving a lot in slick conditions, you're going to need probably a plated differential. This is why rally cars, starting point for a rally car is plated front, plated rear. Torque biasing differentials just don't do anything when you're in slick conditions sliding around. So that's the other big factor. You know, it's possible that if you're in a class where you can't run slicks, so the traction of the tires is going to be a limit.
Sure.
And you're going to break traction with the tires, then maybe the plated diffs would be better. But again, on the street, this plated front diff is a lot. And I mean a lot. I would not like this at all. You're just going to feel like little pops and clunks and stuff. I just can't recommend it. But, I mean, it certainly can be done. But again, I think you stick with the torque biasing front diff as long as you can until you really need to step up to that plated front diff. Hopefully that helps. Hopefully that gives you an idea of where one diff or another is better. And yeah, I mean, I will tell you this, all this being said, this car is a lot of fun with a plated diff front and rear. And I think we're gonna find out how good this car can be in the gravel and the dirt and the rough stuff with this, but stay tuned for that. So hopefully this helps answer some questions about what the difference is between these differentials. Oh yeah, see, the lift off just noses right in. Maybe that's a good thing, maybe it's not. You just have to decide for yourself. So thanks so much for watching. Thanks for your support as always. Until next time, stay tuned with Flat Iron's Tuning.